Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson where we're going to look at creating evocative landscape images using layers and adding realistic rippled, watery reflections to them. Now, nothing beats the rich, warm colours of a great sunrise, but on its own, it's just a backdrop. So we're going to add a focal point in the form of a shapely silhouetted tree. These are the two simple components making up the image, and all the other enhancements are digitally created. So to balance this composition, we'll create a new sun on another layer and place it in just the right spot. We now have the makings of an attractive image, but to give it more appeal, we're then going to create a reflection using a special technique that makes good use of our free reflection kit. There we go. To make it even stronger, we're going to then use another layer to add some mist, giving a really evocative image that's all constructed in Photoshop from those two simple components we started with, the tree and, of course, the sunrise. It's a fabulous technique that's great fun to do, and if you show it to your friends, they'll be asking you how you managed to capture it, because everything looks so real. So that's the plan, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start from scratch, so I'll close this finished version down. And we can kick off with our sunrise image. Now, of course, it's best if you use your own sunrise picture, but if you don't have one handy, you can use ours, which is in the Start Images folder. So just go up to File and choose Open using either Photoshop or Elements, click on Open, and you'll find the sunrise.jpg image in the Start Images folder. Click on Open there, and it'll load up on screen. Now, what we don't want in our sunrise picture is all these roofs of houses in the foreground. So what we're going to do is go to the crop tool. So select the crop tool from the toolbox and then just drag a bounding box all the way around the image, cropping out the houses at the bottom of the frame. So something like that should do the trick. Once you've got your crop drawn across the image like that, double click inside the bounding box or hit return and you'll have just the sunrise and no houses. Once you've done that, we need our silhouetted focal point. So we're going to open up a tree image, so go to File, Open, and you'll find the tree silhouette picture in the Start Images folder. Though, of course, you can use any silhouetted image you like. So we'll double-click on that, we'll get our tree on screen. Now, to combine the two pictures into one document, we need to first of all select the tree, so hit Ctrl and A, that will put marching ants all the way around the tree image, then hit Ctrl and C to copy it, then Ctrl and W to close down the tree, and finally Ctrl and V to paste it into the sunrise. Now both images are in the same document, but the tree, because we've pasted it in, is on a separate layer. So let's have a look at our layers palette. If you go up to Window and choose Layers, it'll pop up on screen. There we go. You can see there we've got the background, which is our sunrise, and we've got the tree, which is on layer 1. Now the first thing we're going to do is blend these two layers together, and we can do that using a special blending mode. So click where it says Normal in the Layers panel and choose Multiply. Click on that and the two get blended together. It's not a perfect blend at the moment, but we can improve the way it looks. Now, it's often the case you want to change the size or the shape of your layers after you've blended them. So to do that, we're just going to go into transform mode. So hit Ctrl and T on the keyboard and you'll get this bounding box around layer 1. Now we can move it into position, I think something like that. Make sure just the trunk is visible at the bottom of the picture, so something like that should be good. Don't worry about these bits, we'll tidy those up in a second. If you want to change the size or the shape, all you got to do is pull on these handles around the bounding box. We can elongate our tree slightly there, or we can squish it in, or we can change the scale of it by pulling the corner handles. But I think something like that looks pretty good. So we'll accept those changes by double-clicking inside the bounding box. And we now have our resized and reformatted tree silhouette sitting on the picture. But it does need a bit of cleaning up. And to clean it up, we're going to use a really simple tool. That's the eraser tool. So just click on that from the toolbox, and then we can take a look in our tool options bar. I'll just double click the hand tool to make sure that's visible. We've got our eraser selected. We need to make sure the opacity is up to 100%. And brush size, I think that looks about okay, about 400 pixels. All we're going to do is take out the edge of that image there. So we make sure we've got rid of that bit, and round to here, we're just feathering in these bits and pieces here. That's the kind of thing we've got to get rid of that as well. We just want to, let me move my layers palette out the way. In fact, I'll just make my image a little bit smaller on screen. There we go. And we'll just keep on rubbing out the corners and these edges so we don't get that nasty hard edge around the outside of our tree. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now we've still got the odd dark patch within the branches of our tree, so to clean that up even more, what we're going to do is hit Control and L to open up the Levels palette. Then we're going to move the shadows and highlight sliders just a little bit. The shadows will thicken our silhouette, so we can move that in a touch. That will make the blacks blacker. And then the highlight slider, if we move that inwards as well, we can brighten up that background. Don't go too far because you'll lose definition, but something like that should be okay. The numbers themselves will vary on every kind of silhouette you use, so don't worry too much about those. Just move in the shadows and the highlights to clean up the background and get a nice clean looking silhouette. Once you've done that, click OK, and the image is taking shape. But what we're now going to do is create another layer and put a sun in the sky. So to create a new layer, you just click on this icon here. It looks like a piece of paper with the folded corner. That's the Create a New Layer icon. Click on that once and you'll get a new layer 2 at the top of the layer stack. Now we're going to fill this with black first and foremost. So to make sure black is selected as your foreground color, hit D on the keyboard. That will reset your colors to black and white. And then to flood fill that new layer with black, just hold down the Alt key and hit backspace. And that fills it with the foreground color. Alt and backspace for the foreground color, Control and backspace for the background color. Now once you've done that, what we're going to do is change the blending mode on this layer. Last time we used multiply for the tree, so this time we're going to use the opposite of multiply, which is called screen. So we click where it says normal and choose screen from the drop down list. That makes the black invisible. But if we have a bright tone on there, it will be visible. So to get our bright tone, we're going to go up to filter, then down to render, and then choose lens flare. And this brings up an old school dialog box with a lens flare filter. We can see it on the black here. What we need is our sun, roughly over on the left hand side of the image. Somewhere around there should be okay. We'll set the brightness to 100% and we'll use as a lens type 50 to 300mm zoom. Once you've set those in and got it roughly in the right position, click OK and it will appear on your image. Now at the moment that's a little high for a sunrise. We want to bring it down in the frame a bit. So all I'm going to do is hit V to go into the move tool, and then I can move it around as I see fit. And I think somewhere like that looks pretty good there. So I'm going to position our sun round about there in the sky, a little bit lower. And now what I can do is paint out the flare I don't want. And I can do that using a black brush. So if I pick up the paintbrush tool, make sure opacity is set to 100%. And then that's a good size brush, 700 pixels or so. If you need to change brush size, just use the left and right square brackets keys. Left takes you down in size, right takes you up in size. So around 700 pixels, we need to fill in all these areas where the black has dropped off. Where we move that layer, we've got a strip of transparency at the top of it. So we need to fill in that with black, first of all. So we make sure that's fully opaque, and then we can get rid of any bits of flare that are distracting or spoiling our subject. So I'm just going to paint black over these bits of flare. I'll get rid of that bit as well. Just go around and just take out where the flare is washing out some of the image. Still want to leave that nice halo around our digital sun, but don't want to have anything getting in the way of our subject. Whoops, I've moved my image there. There we go. And you can see there in the Layers panel, we've got a perfectly black background around our digital sun. Now that's all done, we've built our composite image. We've got 3 layers so far, our background, our tree, and our sun. And before we move on to the next step, what we need to do is flatten them all into one single background layer. That's really quick and easy to do. Just go up to where it says Layer, click there, and then choose Flatten Image. And that will crunch all our layers into one. So the composite image we've made has now been flattened into a single background layer. And it's time now to build our special reflection effect. Now to build it, what we need to do first of all is duplicate the background layer. That's really quick and easy to do. Just hit Ctrl and J on the keyboard and you'll see a carbon copy of it made as layer 1. We're now going to change the canvas size. So to do that, in Elements, go to Image, Resize, and choose Canvas Size. And in Photoshop, you'll find that same command under Image, Canvas Size. So very similar, but slightly different places. Once you've got the Canvas Size dialog box up on screen, what you need to do is click in this top middle anchor box. So click there. That means that any extension will be made directly downwards. Check that Canvas extension color is set to white. Tick the relative box, and then in the height, it's height we want, put in 100 and change the units to %. So we have a 100% increase in size in a downwardly direction with the relative box ticked. And it's going to be white in color, the bit that we extend. So with that done, we can click OK. And then if we double click the hand tool, we can see the whole thing up on screen. And there's our image. It's doubled in size. And we've got a big white rectangle underneath our picture. And you can see it there on the background layer. Now we've done that, we're going to make a reflection using this top layer. So click on the top layer to make sure it's active, and then you're going to hit Ctrl and T to go into free transform mode. Now making a simple reflection is really easy. All you have to do is grab hold of the top handle and drag it downwards. It will flip through itself down to the bottom of the screen and then release the mouse, double click inside the bounding box, and we have a perfect reflection. Now the trouble with perfect reflections is they don't look real, because it simply is a mirrored version of the scene above. And what we need to do is run some special processing on the reflected part of the image just to make it look real. But before we do that, we need to lock the transparent pixels on this top layer. So again, we've got layer 1 active in the layers panel. What we need to do is click on this icon here. This is the lock transparent pixels icon. And by locking this area here, that's the transparent pixel area, we'll make sure we get a good result in the next step. And the next step is to run a filter effect. And we're going to run the motion blur filter on this reflection. So to do that, go up to Filter, go down to Blur, and then across to Motion Blur. Click on that, and the dialog box will come up. And you can see there we've got a nice hard edge, and that's because we've locked the transparent pixels. If this looks all soft and fuzzy, then you need to cancel it and go back and lock those pixels. Really important for this particular technique. Now, in the box, what we need is an angle of about 90 degrees, so it gives us a vertical reflection, and that's way too much on the distance, so we need to set our distance to round about sort of 30 or 40 pixels, something like that. That gives a little bit of motion and shimmer to the reflection. Click OK once you've set that up, and now comes the clever shimmering water reflection, and this comes courtesy of a special displacement map, supplied, of course, in the start images. So to use it, go up to Filter, down to Distort, and then choose Displace. Click on that and you'll get a strange little dialog box called Displace, which gives you a horizontal scale, a vertical scale, and a load of other bits and pieces underneath. Now, what you need to do is make sure that the horizontal scale is about half the vertical scale. So I'm going to go for 200 in horizontal, and I'm going to go for 400 in vertical. Once you've done that, make sure that Stretch to Fit is ticked, and also Repeat Edge Pixels is ticked as well. And with that done, just click OK. What you get now is a standard navigation panel, and what you need to find is the Lake Reflection Kit in the Start Images folder. Once you've found the folder, open that up by double-clicking on it, and then you've got all these displacement maps, which are all different water effects. Now I'm going to pick number 1, and once you've got it highlighted, click on Open. And look at that. You get a fantastic looking water reflection. It reflects the tree silhouette and the sunlight and the sky all in one fell swoop. And that effect is all generated by using our special displacement files and, of course, the displacement map filter. So with that done, we have a great looking image, but I think it could be even more evocative if we had a little bit of early morning mist to our sunrise picture. So to create the mist, we need another layer. So click on the Create a New Layer icon, and we'll get a new layer at the top of the layer stack. So we've got 3 now. The background, which was made from our composite image. We've got layer 1, which is our processed reflection, and we've got layer 2, which at the moment is blank. And that's where we're going to add our mist effect. Now for mist, we need a paintbrush, so we'll select the brush tool, and we need it to be white. So a quick way to get a white brush is to hit D on the keyboard. That resets your colors to the default black and white, and then hit X to swap them over. That puts white into the foreground color swatch, and will load that color onto your brush tip. Now in terms of brush size, I think around 500 pixels would be good, so you can use the left square brackets key to take it down to about 500, and then in the opacity slider, you want to get a nice low opacity of about 20%. Now you can move the slider down to set up 20%, or if you want to be clever, you can just hit 2 on the numeric keyboard, and that will give you 20% instantly. So with that fixed, we have our layer selected, our new blank layer, and all we're going to do is paint into this horizon line with some short circular strokes, and we're going to make a nice little kind of misty effect right to the edge. Going to make it thicker in some places, thinner in others, So something like that looks pretty good. Yep, I think that will work well. Now it's a bit blotchy at present, it's not quite as good as it could be, so we're going to blur our mist, and we'll do that using a special blurring filter. And to get there, just go to Filter, down to Blur, and choose not Motion Blur this time, but Gaussian Blur. Click on Gaussian Blur, and in the dialog box, use a value of something like 120 pixels. The number's not critical, but round about sort of 100 to 120 should be fine. Once you've done that, click OK, and your mist will turn into a nice ethereal blur. But at the moment it's a little bit on the thick side, it looks a bit heavy, so all we've got to do is reduce the opacity of that mist. And we can do that in the Layers panel. Just click on the opacity slider and reduce it. If you take it all the way to 0, you'll lose your mist altogether, so find the happy medium where it looks realistic, and I think round about there looks pretty good. I've got about 75%, and I like the look of that. And that's our image complete. So it shows from two very simple components, a lovely sunrise that we shot from a bedroom window, strangely enough, and we've got a nice elegant tree that was taken from another image. We've turned it into a fantastic lake reflection using the special kit in the Start Images folder. We've added a nice sun, and we've added some nice atmospheric mist just to make the image look as great as possible. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Give it a go. You can, of course, reflect any scene using that displacement map and our free reflection kit. So if you ever want to flood a foreground or see what your own house looks like by a lakeside, that's the way to do it. All right, thanks for watching. Enjoy the technique, and I'll see you next time.